It's been
quebrando
to
tudo
the
pro
highest
alto,
level
tá?
since
E o euro
2021.
derretendo.
Remember,
BRL tá onde? Cadê o
cryptocurrency is
BRL?
soaring by and large. There's a prospect of a
BRL
pro-crypto
segurando a onda dos
Congress, and Congress
5,80.
is actually up for 7
É,
days, guys.
gato.
It's up almost 10%
Chora,
this morning, which is a really
chora,
large jump.
neném.
But over a
Chora,
7-day
neném.
period, it's
Deixa eu ver
actually up
aqui a parada.
65%, just over a
Aquela
week.
que eu não
So
queria
a
ver
lot of hope
aparecer.
here that a potential red wave could help crypto out.
All right, we're also checking in on shares of Tesla as investors bet on Elon Musk's influence in Washington. I was listening to Kriti Gupta this morning on Bloomberg Radio. She said it might be a Trump trade. It kind of, a little bit of a Trump trade. It's a massive Trump trade, and it's now worth more than $1 trillion, pushing Elon Musk's wealth up to more than $300 billion. Let's take a closer look at another big Trump trade as well, which is crypto. For that, we go to Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle. Abby, what do you see?
Well, we see Bitcoin at a new record high. Crypto absolutely a piece of the Trump trade, given the idea, the sense that the Trump administration is going to be pro-crypto, and that if there is a trifecta, a red wave that Shonali was talking about in D.C., that there could be members of Congress that will also be pro-crypto. All of this, again, has Bitcoin at an all-time high. And it started last week, so we can really see the Trump piece of this. The inflows for some of the Bitcoin ETFs, well, the day after the election really went bonkers, a record inflow for this crypto ETF, and you can see lots of green here overall, perhaps in anticipation, the Trump trade really taking off a couple of weeks, months ago, but again, last week, that massive inflow. Finally, let's put it all together with some of the crypto ETFs on the day. So there's that Bitcoin ETF up 7%, 2 times Bitcoin, not surprisingly up double, and then MicroStrategy and Mara Holdings also up in big, significant ways. Investors love this crypto. And Katie, it's super interesting because the technicals on Bitcoin had been interesting, but a lot of these quote unquote impossible trades coming to life with the anticipation of the Trump administration.
Absolutely. Abigail Doolittle, thank you so much. And let's keep that conversation going now with Citi Global Wealth Chief Investment Strategist and Chief Economist Steve Whiting joining us at the desk now. Steve, it's great to see you in person.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me here.
So the election is in the rearview mirror. Talk to us through how you were positioned heading into the vote and how it's changed since then.
Well, you know, U.S. equities have risen as 65% of the world, but our weightings across U.S. themes were 6% overweight that, including profitable small and mid-cap U.S. stocks, which I think, you know, if you're a little bit worried about how far large caps have run, we're talking about equities that are still about 5% below their long-term historical average valuation, about a third less than large cap growth. You know, so there's been a very big disparity here. I think that there's some catching up if there's some broadening in performance. It's really a story of haves and have-nots across the world. I mean, global equities are trading at 13 times, ex-US, 13 times forward EPS. And the question is, we're a little cautious about the effects of a rising dollar if we had a red sweep, and that's exactly what's happened. So it's a cheaper entry point, but we're not quite sure exactly how we'll exploit that.
Talk to us about the risks to small and mid cap in particular,
Yes.
because there are plenty, including potentially higher interest costs. Matt made a good point about uncertainties about future labor costs. If you see mass deportations, just the job force changing, the workforce changing in the United States, what does all that mean?
Yeah, I just would, you know, again, distinguish a little bit from a cyclical trade, right? I think deregulation, this whole thing is pretty powerful for cyclicals. It certainly includes financials. You know, whether it becomes a growth paradise for troubled companies is a different story. And so we're exploiting this through already profitable companies that have relatively lower debt burdens that are sitting essentially in growth indices. So if you take a look at the S&P 400 and 600 growth indices, these are the specifics. So these are a little bit up in quality, and they're a little lower in beta. So they will not necessarily be swept up quite as much as, again, the lowest quality type companies. But we think that these have really been systematically underpriced as opposed to Russell 2000.
Stephen, you've been in this market for quite a while now. And I'm sure, like me, you've heard so many people say, there's so much cash on the sidelines, you know, and I've heard it again today that institutional investors have like still 20% in cash, so they'll be able to fuel a continued rally. How much faith do you put into that idea?
You know, I'm a little troubled by that because, hey, maybe we could put some of the stock market money and add to that. But I think it's really the change, right? The buildup in cash, the delta, which has still been very strong. Now, again, that's been coming down some. But if you look right behind us, you know, we have had a very large buildup in cash from the sidelines. There are a lot of very wealthy clients that have been rolling T-bills, and they're like, I won't believe this until rates come down. Now rates have come down. And there could be some performance chasing, again, out of that money. So I do think there's something there.
How far do rates come down? There's a lot of debate here about where the 10-year goes. It's been holding pretty steady at 4.3%. It got as high as 4.5%. Is the direction of travel higher?
Well, we think it can be. And we've adjusted our views, again, on the red sweep. First off, every Fed easing cycle has been a yield curve steepening cycle, right? And again, if we back off a little bit, we can move back and forth on this thing. But Fed tightening periods have been yield curve flatteners, and easing cycles will be steepeners. The Federal Reserve is not going to make assumptions about what fiscal policy is going to do. And by the way, we think that U.S. fiscal policy will change more dramatically, if at all, in 2026, not 2025. Again, this has to be legislated through Congress, and there's a big process around it. But if we have again, some promises of easing fiscal policy in 2026. I think that the Federal Reserve doesn't cut quite as far as it otherwise would. Maybe it's another move, and maybe it's just 100 basis points from here. If the economy is firm as we think, because we had a lot of problems back in 2023 that we're actually recovering from, you'll see a curve steepener. And that's something I think that can help financials. I don't think it's devastating for the bond market, given how low yields are around the rest of the world. But, you know, we have a little more caution on rates.
And I think a lot of people would like to see a healthier curve. It is not exactly what Jeffrey said out in a note, expecting a little bit of a flattener there. But before we let you go, I want to talk a little bit, again, about how you allocate in this post-election environment. There was a really interesting investment letter from BlackRock's model team that went out last week, and they're basically positioning for broad risk on. They don't want to be looking at specific sectors, making specific calls on electoral outcomes. I'm wondering how you're thinking of threading the needle between these broad risk on allocations versus getting a little bit more specific.
Well, I would just say that we'll find, when we look back, it's going to be pretty specific. But we've, traded election-related uncertainty. Who will win? What will be the makeup of Congress, with policy uncertainty over exactly what can get implemented, what are the priorities, what's the process. Again, we'll watch again the new administration and who the choices are and how they pursue these things. I think that you'll find that the outcomes will be pretty specific. But it's certainly better to be specific than to just say, hey, I love the Western Hemisphere, or or the East, that sort of thing. But I think for now, we have to live with the uncertainty, and we'll have a lot of knowledge about what comes in, but really prepare where there's some undiscounted value still. And I think that that's still fairly broad in the equity market. It's certainly broader than just the Magnificent Seven.
Stephen, we thank you so much for joining us here on Set this Monday. That is Citi's Steve Whiting. Now, there's one stock we are watching right now, and it's AbbVie. Shares are sinking after 2 trials of its drug to treat schizophrenia had failed to meet its goals. You now have AbbVie down more than 11.5%. That is the worst you've really seen since March of 2020. It's a tale of two cities here, isn't it, Katie? I know you're watching some others who have been having more success with a similar drug.
Yeah, and of course, this is bad news for AbbVie. Up until this point, they had been outperforming the S&P 500 on a year-to-date basis, but clearly that drug trial really taking it down. But to your point, Bristol Myers Squibb, this is good news for that company. You think back to September, they gained U.S. approval for the first new type of schizophrenia drug in 7 decades. So there's your pair trade right now. Bristol Myers Squibb up about 11% to AbbVie's 12% decline.
It's pretty much money in the door, money out the door. Now, coming up, we mentioned Bitcoin and crypto stocks surging on the hopes that Trump will put the U.S. at the center of the digital asset universe. We're going to talk more about that trade next. This is Bloomberg.
in case you missed it on Bloomberg Technology.
We're excited to really change the expectations for space companies, where you have this always-on, reliable, and frankly dynamic satellite connectivity that you would expect of your power grid or of your cell phones. And so we think that this is a huge opportunity space, and our first contribution to it is through shared infrastructure.
You can see this whole ecosystem developing, and you have an exponential growth right now because easier access to space means more demand for space, and that's the definition of an exponential growth function. So if you think about someone like Varda, who is only possible now because access to space is cheaper and easier, we're demanding more access to space.
I think that's what's so exciting from a business perspective, is the fact that if you can do it, you're one of the few numbers of organizations in the history who've actually pulled it off. And so it creates a very defensible position, because again, space is very, very hard.
Don't miss Bloomberg Technology live every weekday.
The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day.
Big tech earnings kick off later this afternoon.
Gilead is coming out right now.
We have take two numbers. Back to the markets, right? Our bread and butter.
NVIDIA is one of the best stories in the tech space.
That actually matters a whole lot more.
It might shock some of your viewers.
You're watching The Close.
Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with The Close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. Bloomberg covers the world with unmatched reach and resources. From more than 120 countries, the moment news breaks, 24 hours a day. Bloomberg, context changes everything.
It's the countdown to the market open as we bring you the first trades across Europe.
We'll debate the most important stories and what will drive the big investment decisions throughout the morning. I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Kriti Gupta.
And I'm Anna Edwards. Join us every weekday morning for the opening trade, live at 7 a.m. here in London.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Welcome back to Bloomberg Open Interest. Let's take a check on that rally underway in the stock market. You can see the S&P 500 still up to the tune of about 0.3%. This is on pretty hefty volume as well. I can't say the same for the NASDAQ 100. That early bid into tech is fading right now. The NASDAQ 100 flipping into negative territory, but the small caps hanging on and then some. The Russell 2000 currently higher by about 1.1%, Shanali.
And a crypto buying spree is underway as traders bet that Trump will usher in a new era of digital asset investing. That means Bitcoin is now at an all-time high or near it, while stocks like Marathon Digital and Coinbase surge as well. We're going to bring in Metafied CEO Frank Spicer, and fascinating to see Bitcoin hit 82,000 or more, but how much more upside is there? How much is this the, buy the rumor, sell the news kind of story at the end of the day, especially when you realize—
Buy the rumor, buy the news is what it was. We were up, and then Trump got elected, and then we're up.
But nothing's happened yet. Like everything else you've seen.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a good. The news hasn't come yet.
There's
is your
no
point.
new SEC chief yet. There is no new head of all these regulatory agencies outside of that. Frank, what do you think?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. I would say the markets still have a ways to go, because what you're seeing right now is primarily institutionally driven buying. It's people that have been, soaking up the BTC that was available through the exchange liquidations, and now those are pretty much burnt off. But retail hasn't come back in. If you look at the size of the buy orders that are coming in, they're all fairly large. You're not seeing drips and drabs like you would. And you're not seeing your Uber driver checking their portfolio as you're driving around now. When that returns, I think that the market can go considerably higher.
I mean, I would buy that there's more institutional interest in this run-up than there has been in the past. On the other hand, Doge has run further faster, right? I think it's up 80-some% year to date. How come people are buying this? And please tell me, institutions are not buying Dogecoin.
I don't know if institutions are buying Dogecoin. They're not large buys. It seems speculative, but if I had to put my bet on it, I would say they're expecting Elon Musk to do something with Twitter and bake it into that platform for its censorship-resistant qualities. You know, if you have a token that you can use to monetize a platform in jurisdictions where the governments are sort of prohibiting, you know, their currencies to be traded, Doge is a way around that and a way to monetize the platform. It may not be the only token that Musk uses, but I actually anticipate him to work that in order to continue to, you know, move the platform away from free speech restrictions in jurisdictions that are a little more restricted.
Just to tie a bow on the Dogecoin discussion, if you're a big institution watching right now and you're buying Dogecoin, come on with us. We just have a couple questions. But Frank, let's talk a little bit more about the mix between retail and institution when it comes to Bitcoin. And let's bring this conversation to the Bitcoin ETFs, which are seeing so much interest. And at first blush, you might think, that's all retail buying these ETFs on their brokerage platforms. But we have seen a lot of hedge funds come in through the wrapper.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of people feel, a lot of hedge fund managers feel that there's a little bit more to go, actually a lot more left in this market run up, and they don't want to be left out. You know, everybody has to have a piece, and it's a really easy way to be involved there, especially, you know, when you're looking at the compliance and regulatory, you know, requirements. It's a great way to get involved with the asset, and I think, you know, it's going to work for them. It's going to work for retail investors, and it's an overall good way to be involved in the market.
Frank, if we think about what's next, you said Bitcoin could go materially higher. What's the price target? I mean, where do you think it ends next year?
Well, I was on this show and I said it would be 100K by the end of the year when it was about 58. I think, you know, given where we're at, I wouldn't put 150K out by the end of next year. And I still think that 100K was within reach this year as well.
We saw Mara Holdings take off. We saw Coinbase take off. I mean, any number of crypto-related stocks. And on that note, I wonder about Metafied. I know you want to get into broader trading, maybe equities trading using AI. Just give us the quick elevator pitch about your business expanding.
Yes, Metafied uses AI predictive signals to forecast asset prices, and we use humans to compete with them to fine-tune them. And we've been primarily involved in crypto asset predictions, but we're over the next 6 months moving into broader equities and commodities forecasting, and those products should be out, you know, very soon after the new year.
Frank, really enjoyed this conversation. Of course, Frank Spicer, he is Metafied CEO, and it's just wild. I was taking a look at the one-year chart of Bitcoin. We were below $40,000 last year, and you still had people coming out with those $100,000 calls, and you called them crazy, but here we are, $82,000. I mean, 100K looks reasonable almost.
You know, you think about the impact that Fairshake, which is the PAC that was funded by A16Z and Coinbase, how much influence they had in the down ballot races. And you consider what that means for regulation moving forward. Maybe finally a stablecoin bill. Maybe finally some of the SEC enforcement actions being put away under a potentially new chief. The SEC chair tends to step down pretty quickly into a new administration.
Well, and Trump said if he doesn't, he'll fire him. So I think you can pretty much count on Gensler being gone and all of that regulation being absolutely trashed. And bringing in new regulation, maybe that the crypto industry, to your point, will embrace, maybe has written themselves. Coming up, President-elect Trump narrowing down his Treasury Secretary shortlist. It's Scott Bessent and everyone else. We'll take a look at those picks in today's Wall Street Beat. This is Bloomberg.
your fixed income fix. Watch Bloomberg Real Yield every Friday right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
This is Bloomberg Technology.
This is the Asia trade.
You're watching the close.
Welcome to Balance of Power.
This is Bloomberg.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and important insights. What do you think the future is for inflation? Is this a new normal? Are markets too optimistic? How do you worry about the things that are outside your control? How does the current fighting completely stop? I'm Francine Lacqua, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at the Forbidden City in Beijing, and this is Bloomberg.
And it's time now for the Wall Street Beat. Today we're looking at who may be the next Treasury Secretary as President-elect Trump weighs his options. Joining us with more is Bloomberg senior Washington correspondent Saleha Mohsin. And want to talk about Treasury. You are so steeped in this subject. But first I want to talk about the one person that looks like he's going to trade, Robert Lighthizer, because he was on that Treasury list earlier on, now opens the door a little bit for new candidates. You are an expert in the dollar. What does Lighthizer a trade mean for Wall Street?
Well, one thing, actually, I want to correct the record there. Bloomberg did publish a story today that says that over the last couple of days, we've learned that between Election Day and the conclusion of our reporting over the past few days, Bob Lighthizer was not offered the USTR role. He was not offered the job to return to that role as he was during the first Trump administration. So Lighthizer could still be in the mix for Treasury.
I look at the betting markets, Saleha, and I pay extra close attention to them now. Scott Bessent, you want to buy that at 73 cents. And the next biggest is Howard Lutnick at 10 cents. So is this a pretty lopsided race? Do we kind of know that Scott Bessent is very likely to get the nod?
Well, that's the thing here. It's not a race, right? No one gets to vote on it. There is no polling on it.
One person votes.
It's just what people are reporting. One person votes, and that man has not weighed in. So we don't know whether Bessent is up and Lutnick is down, or Bessent is down and Paulson is up. We just don't know. It's going to come down to what the president-elect decides. We know that the list of potential Treasury secretaries will be narrowed down by the end of this week, and then we expect to have interviews and then hopefully an announcement.
A good reminder, of course, this comes down to Donald Trump, but boy, is it fun to speculate. And we know that he's getting advice. Of course, Bloomberg has reported that those close to him have suggested that, for example, Saleha, for Treasury, perhaps he should pick someone with Wall Street experience.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what President Trump did, or President-elect Trump did when he was president from 2017 to 2021. He had Stephen Mnuchin, who came with a Goldman Sachs pedigree. And so now, if you look at the list of secretaries that he may be considering this week, most of them have a Wall Street pedigree, and that is, history tells us that that's what he's going to go for.
All right, Saleha, thanks so much for joining us. Bloomberg's Saleha Mohsin continuing to... I thought you were going to get some time to sleep, Saleha, frankly, after the election. But obviously, she's continuing to do the 24/7 reporting schedule. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, it feels like this list got longer, not shorter, over the last couple of
True.
days.
Well, reading some of the reporting, of course, Howard Lutnick has been providing thousands and thousands of names. There's something like 4,000 roles they need to fill. So it is interesting, though, that some of the top slots, Treasury Secretary, the list is getting longer.
But to her most important point, it doesn't really matter what we all think the list looks like. It only matters what President Trump says. And since he hasn't said anything, we're speculating about speculation.
Yeah.
But we'll know by the end of the week. So, it'll move on faster than you expect. Anyways.
Coming up in the next hour, Nimrit Kang joins us from North Star to talk about deregulation across energy and financials. And we'll talk with Edgewell CEO Rod Little on how he's preparing for potential tariffs on suntan lotion. This is Bloomberg.
Arch has laid plenty of groundwork for future revenue, but for now, Mark Messler's most pressing challenge as CFO is conserving capital.
You have to have the short-term discipline to sort of circle the wagons around cash. I mean, cash is oxygen. I know where every ounce of cash is going, and but we also have to be nimble around that as well because things change by the day.
Archer went public in 2021 in a reverse merger with a SPAC, Ken Moelis's Atlas Crest Investments. Through August 2023, the company raised over $1 billion from investors including Stellantis, Boeing, United Airlines, and Cathie Wood's ARK Investment Management.
Does that ARK investment open doors for you to bring in different kinds of institutional money going forward?
It does. I mean, I think there's a lot of credibility that comes in with an investor like ARK. As I think about, my top targeted list of investors over the next 2 to 3 years, an investment like that gives us some credibility and gives us a little bit of staying power as I go in and talk to other investors.
With the SPAC pipe now closed, Archer's facing a new phase of raising capital.
I know the folks who aren't willing to invest right now may have large pockets of investment in the future. So I want to be in front of them. I'm wanting to show them progress. I want to create credibility with them that we are marching towards our goals of commercialization.
There is this real momentum from Wall Street.
We are basically deep in the European earnings season.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. Bloomberg ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. We begin in West Palm Beach, Florida, where President-elect Donald Trump's transition team has begun shaping the next administration. Among the picks, former ICE Chief Tom Homan to be border czar. CBS's Stacey Lynn.
Trump made the announcement on Truth Social, saying there is nobody better at policing and controlling our borders.
I'm honored the president asked me to come back and help solve this national security crisis.
Homan on Fox News.
The calling is clear. I got to go back and help because every morning I'm pissed off about what this administration did to the most secure border in my lifetime. So I'm going to go back and do what I can to fix it.
He says public safety and national security threats will be the top priority.
Mr. Trump will nominate New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik to be U.S. ambassador to the UN. U.S. climate envoy John Podesta is concerned the new administration will put climate work on the back burner.
In January, we're going to inaugurate a president whose relationship to climate change is captured by the words hoax and fossil fuels.
Podesta spoke at the start of the COP29 summit in Azerbaijan. A drought-fueled wildfire still burning along the New York-New Jersey border. This woman had to leave her home in West Milford, New Jersey.
My neighbor said he saw some flames like by the side of the road and everything, so it's time to go.
A New York State Parks employee was killed when he was hit by a falling tree. An update on the wildfire that's burned dozens of homes north of Los Angeles. Correspondent Elise Preston is in Camarillo.
Firefighters have gained ground on the massive mountain fire. Many residents who were forced to quickly flee on Wednesday are now returning to find their homes reduced to rubble.
The flames there fanned by hurricane-force wind gusts last week. Under arrest, a man who sparked a nationwide search after allegedly trying to make the murder of a hiker in Tennessee look like a bear attack.
Nicholas Wayne Hamlet was taken into custody at a hospital in Columbia, South Carolina, after he was recognized by a hospital worker and a police officer. The FBI confirmed his identity through fingerprints. He's facing murder charges in Tennessee and a parole violation in Alabama. Back in mid-October, authorities in East Tennessee found a 31-year-old man dead in a staged bear attack that was allegedly linked to Hamlet. Jim Crisula, CBS News.
Look up and you may see the last supermoon of the year this week. If you want to catch it, the American Museum of Natural History's Jackie Faraday has advice.
Go outside at sunset, watch the sunset because it's usually beautiful, and then turn
turn around and look the other way because the moon will be rising.
It'll be closer to the Earth than usual, which makes it look bigger. New record highs on Wall Street. The Dow up 486 points. Bitcoin tops 82,000. This is CB.
or CVS.
An NFL player's been punished for showing his political stripes.
San Francisco 49ers star defensive end Nick Bosa is fined more than $11,000 after he crashed a post-game interview wearing a MAGA hat.
What was said during halftime? Hey, all right, Nick Bosa with a message there.
That was on NBC late last month after the team's win against the Cowboys. After the election, Bosa said he knew he could get a fine from the NFL.
Away from that price right there. So let's see if that can potentially come in here. Aggressive selling. Again, failure to follow through of the 350. We've been extending for multiple days. We gap up and then we can't get past that 350. Only 70 pennies. That's distinctly different from the trade that we saw last week, where we break through that 300 and we get instantly almost 2 points within 2 seconds. In the first second, you print 300 halves, and the next second you're printing 302s. So that kind of aggression was not seen through the 350. Definitely distinctly different action here coming in on Tesla. So let's see if that 335 mark I was talking about with you comes in right now. We're only about a few points away from that 335, but that 340 definitely interesting as well as we catch a bit of a bid here coming in on the market. The market is aggressively selling off as well. Again, we kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier right there. The reclaim of 340 happening as of right now. So let's see if we watched a little bit of a 340. That selling was quite aggressive, man.
I'm going to try to go short with you. So we will, you know, again, great trade, Obi. Him and I were both talking about that. Obviously, those levels that we were looking for right now. But let's not be stubborn and let's just fight it. Not too long there. We're going to go short there. So we got stopped out there on 338.50 break. We talked about that play. Now we're going to go back into that short against 342. Like, I'd hate to give everything back right here because now I'm trying to go short. But the short to me is what looks like it wants to print. Like, that's 342. I listening to everything that you're talking about. I like what you're talking about. And again, it's nice to have Obi here again, was, you know, being able to hold these kind of trades. There it comes back in. All right, so we're making it back here, Obi, on a nice little short back through now. We'll wait. I'm still waiting for 338, as you said. If we can get
335.
Yeah, no, but I don't need that price, my guy.
What do you mean?
Right now? Okay, no, we'll still wait for it. But here we go. We're firing off hot dog cannons right now. I love that you're waiting for longer. Boom, bye.
2.5 points.
Yeah, let's go. Let's keep on going. Good call there, Obi. And again, let's not be stubborn. Like he and I are saying here, get the trade you want, and then have the damn ability, Obi, just like you did, have the ability to have that confidence in your trade, and then be able to flip it the other way. So there's the short. Wow. Okay, great call there, Obi. As we continue to watch out for that, man, we're making a good team here. As you sort of convinced me there of the short. Let's go back into it now. And again, I'm throwing the mic over to you. Great short there. I'm glad we hopped on board.
Thank you. Yeah, 337's coming in, so only about a couple points away from that 335 area. 336's and halves trading as of right now. So yeah, again, I'm looking for that 335 area, give or take a couple of points. We're in that area as of right now. So let's see if that bid steps up. But oh boy, we crushed. That was good. We got crushed down through that 340. So that's the kind of action I like to see if I'm kind of looking short right there. But again, this thing could rip up quite aggressively. Again, we've seen what Tesla is capable of doing. The market's catching a bit of a bounce here as well. So I've got to be a little bit patient for this one. I don't even know if that's going to come in. We went all the way down to 336 halves there, Sean. So maybe that's all she wrote as that kind of pressure comes right back in, that buying pressure. Again, is this the bid that we were looking for? I have no idea. VWAP is still all the way at 343 halves. Yeah. So let's see. We're trading about 3 points above the lows as of right now, catching a bit of a bid here. Again, market tailwind. Catching a bit of a bid on the market as well. The ES looking a little bit weaker there. This 15-minute candle on the Nasdaq already printing greens, man, and we're coming right back into that 340. So let's see if that 340 turns into some resistance, or do we go all the way back up to VWAP? I have no idea, but I've already said what price I'm waiting for. Let's see if that kind of comes in. IBIT, man, that's the trade to get long as it only continues to go up. This thing. Again, a lot of these crypto names are definitely pushing as of right now. I'm looking at Mara. Mara kind of trading within its range right there. So IBIT, I guess, is the only one that's really kind of broken past some of its pre-market levels. Coinbase has really not gone anywhere, and MSTR as well. MSTR catching a bit of a bid at 294s and trading at 301s as of right now. So that one is kind of strong on the day. We saw that DJT earlier was halted up. It halted up at 34s. Remember, now it's trading at 32s and some change right there on DJT. So a lot of these names in that basket catching a bit of a sell here. Another name in that election basket was DXYZ. DXYZ also trading much lower. High of day as of right now is $50 flat. We're trading at 40.66, Sean. So a lot of these tickers catching a bit of a sell after some strong days last week. Oh boy.
Oh boy, oh boy. Our best out is 337. Do you want a coffee, by the way?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Good, Randy. Okay, so yeah, buddy. Great job over there. Let's props it up for my guy Obi over there. And we've actually, so we gave some back on this move coming in for sure, but then to be able to short that, we are now out of about 80% of this short. We just took some more fills down there at 338. So those are some good fills. Now let's go over to a stock that's moving around right now. GameStop up to $26. Are we going to halt on this name? I mean, what are we doing right now? Only up 5%, but there's a gap. So we just gapped up through 26, up to 26.13 right now.